So, couple of things. I knew that my presentation was after issue presentation, so I didn't spend that much time with nice screens. We worked together, and so we worked for PetroVR, the eye here, and Bee Smalltalk over there. Bee Smalltalk is about trying to have the smallest possible virtual machine, if possible no virtual machine at all, and moving everything to the image so that every Smalltalker can explore, change, or invent new things without having to cross that boundary. And we have been doing this for some years now, and I wanted to present or explain one example of the kind of problems we have to resolve to move things that usually are services provided by the VM into the virtual image, right? In this case, the example I will explain has to do with, how to save the image and then load the image without using any service from the VM, okay? This is, if you think a little bit about this, it's like tricky, because when to save the image on disk, you are executing Smalltalk code. There is no VM code, okay? So things are moving around, but you have to save them. And when you load, that is the same, because you start from one image, and then you are loading another image on top of yourself, and trying not to die while attempting this. Or die so elegantly that nobody will notice. So this is the title. Over there is my name, but actually this is not my work, it's Valeria's work. So the full credit goes to her. So let's try to visualize how Valeria approached this problem and address it. So here is the RAM, the memory of the computer. So it's in Bee Smalltalk we have this concept of libraries or packages where every project has a binary representation that can be saved and loaded to this, from this into the image. But this is not, segments of, or spaces, object spaces, are not different from other object spaces. If in the version where still there is a virtual machine, the virtual machine has its own memory space. Let's see, it's there. Then we have the old space, okay, which actually is composed by three parts. One part is the memory of, so the space I represented here corresponds to all the memory I reserve to the operating system. So I told the operating system, please reserve me this amount of memory. Then from that part, one part is already committed, and the smaller part is used, okay? As you create new object or new object move to old space, the used level increases, and eventually you commit more. So this is actually has three parts. Then we have the main library, which is the kernel. The kernel is, you know, object, string, collection, etc. So the basic classes and method. This is the kernel. Then we have all the other libraries. The first one, for instance, is the support for the GUI, but there are many other libraries. So for instance, if we have here loaded the basic development environment, so you have some libraries. If you put here all our product, for instance, it's about 300 or something libraries, okay? This would be more or less our product, 300 libraries. And as I said before, these spaces are object spaces. So it's an object after the other with pointers jumping from one place to the other, corresponding to instance vectors. So this is more or less a representation of the segmentation of the image in memory. Okay? Then we have the file, a disk and a file on it, and we want to save the image. There are many different ways to save the memory into disk, especially when you have this segmentation with libraries, where libraries can be saved as individual components on different files. Okay, so for instance, one idea would be to not save the libraries because they are already on file, but as you run your Smalltalk image, there would be changes on those libraries, essentially in the pointers. So you could, instead of saving all the libraries, which are already on their own files on disk, you could save the changes, meaning that the things that get modified just by using those libraries. That could be a way, but Valeria chose another way, that is essentially send everything to this, as it is now. Okay? But this is, I will explain this a little bit more. So the problem will be eventually when at load time, and but we will deal with that later. So saving is very easy actually. You go space after space and move it into RAM, into disk. Just put it's a very simple code. You tell the operating system to just copy this portion of memory into such file. It's just a simple API code. So we save first not all the VM space because of some technical reasons. Only some variables, the VM globals. There are not many of them, like 7. Then we save all the libraries that correspond to our project, and one after the other. And then we save the kernel. So we somehow change the order here. It will become clearer later when we load this. And after the kernel, we save the old space. Of course, not all of it, just the used part, the yellow one here, because we don't need to save empty old space, okay? And finally, we save the rest of the VM space. So, and the code is quite simple. Here is to give you an idea of the code. This is real code. So in the first line, this is one method. It has 3 parts. In the first part, we write the globals on file. Here, file is an argument, could be an instance variable of the object doing this. But it's not, don't think of file as a file object. It's just a file handle. Okay, it's the minimal thing. Because remember, we are doing this, we don't have to move objects around when we are saving them. This is the trick. So, for instance, you are not supposed to create new objects. You are not supposed to change instance variables. You are not supposed to move things from new space to old space. Okay? Because you are saving. So, you have to do this with just with creating the minimum amount of changes in your system. So, for instance, when we save all the libraries, we have here a way to get the collection of all libraries that are bound into the image. So the kernel comes after, so it's from 2 to bound size, do, etc. And we write this on disk. But for instance, a couple of observations here is we could have written this guy, bound, do, but that would create a block closure. So we use to do, which doesn't create any block closure because it's an inline method, okay? And here we don't use add, because in Bee Smalltalk add is implemented after add if absent, which has a block on it. So here, as the absent block, we send nil. Will never be absent, but you are creating a block just by doing this. And then we write a library in this. You cannot see the details here, but this is very simple. A library, we say a small structure that contains some few descriptions of the library, meaning where it is in memory now, how many bytes it requires or occupies, and the name, something like this. And then we save this structure, and then we save the content. Okay? So this is two very simple file disk operations. Write this, the structure, and then write this many bytes on disk. So this is nothing. Then we save the kernel here, and finally we save the old space, meaning the used part of the old space, and finally the VM space. So saving the image to this is very simple. And so the problem becomes when you want to load that image that you save on disk into a Smalltalk that is just born, as a way of saying, that has the minimum support it requires. It has VM space, the kernel, and some old space, and all of this is minimal. And the first thing it will try to do is to find an image and disk and load the image on top of itself. Okay? But the problem here is what's the problem here? The problem here is on this file we have all these things we said before. Some globals, all the libraries we had when we saved the kernel, the old space on this, and a copy of the VM space. So we proceed in reverse. We first read these 7 globals into the current VM space. And again, we do all of these. Try not to create no objects, etc., etc. There is a small trick I didn't mention before. We save everything except the new space, right? Do you remember? We save all the libraries and the old space. The new space, I kept that. It's because we garbage collect a couple of times, so there is no new space. So the only new space we have is the few temporary objects that we create when saving. We don't need them when reading back the image of this. Okay, so then we load the libraries. Loading the libraries is nothing, because the libraries are still not bound. Okay? We put them on RAM, but they are not connected to the current image. So loading them is easy, but requires some things that I will explain later. Then we load the kernel, but not on top of the current kernel, but so we have 2 kernels, the current one and a copy of the one in disk, okay? In preparation for overwriting the first one. And then we load the old space and the VM space. So the kernel, the old space, and the VM space, we have copies of them that are not active yet, right? The active part is from kernel and below. And now we have to move things on top of the things that are currently working. So the idea is we first have move the old space from this on top of the current old space. Okay? How do... Sorry? Yes, I know. Yes, Valeria's point is very clear. All the slots, meaning the pointers, the OOBs, are like crazy at this moment. So this is to give you an idea, but before doing any of this, we had to fix all the pointers. I will explain that later, but let me give you an overview. So we fix the pointers, then we copy this here. When copying this here, we save the amount of memory that was used. In this case, we probably don't have enough of all space here, like committed, but we assume we have enough reserved. So we check whether we have to commit more, so we can put the old space on top of the committed current old space. Then we will put the kernel on top of the current kernel. At this time, we will assume that the kernels have the same amount of bytes, are the same. Okay? So there is a restriction here. When I load an image, I need to load from an image that has the same kernel that I had when I saved the image. This restriction can be removed, but for now, let's assume that's the case. Okay? So the kernel that was saved occupies the same amount of bytes that the kernel that is currently running. And finally, we will put the VM space on top of the current VM space, again assuming both have the same length. So then we don't need this anymore, so we free that memory. We forget that. Okay? And that's essentially why these three things come like at the end of the file, just to free them more easily. So let's think a little bit more about the problem we created when we saved first the library and then the libraries and all the spaces, and then we tried to load them back. Because when we save the libraries, we have like I will call these segments, also object spaces. Okay. So I have several segments. So for instance, I have here I don't know, some few segments. So there are pointers, OOBs, from one segment to probably another. Another OOB points this way, and some are internal to the same segment. Okay? And but the problem is that the OOB is exactly the address in memory of the object. And when we load them back, they could have been moved because we load one segment at the time, and when we load the segment, we ask the operating system for memory and put the segment there. But that could be a different location from the location it was before. So this is the kind of things that we have to be careful before moving the segments on top of the current ones. So for instance, the idea is that you have to fix all the segments in this way. Let me finish this drawing and I will explain it. So, you have the segments as they were in the first reality when they were on memory. So, for instance, we have three OOBs. One pointing to segment 1, one pointing to segment 3, and the other one pointing to, I don't know, the same segment, segment 2. But this was when all of this was in this memory location. But now, when I load again, because I load one segment at a time, segment 1 could be loaded here, segment 3 here, and segment 2 here. It's not just only different locations, could be different between them in different order, okay? So for every segment, we have, so for every OP, what we have to do is, okay, this OP belongs to this, so I'm starting a segment. I know when the segment was before, when it is now, then I take an OP. I look for the segment that contains that OP and assume it's this one. And then I look for the current address of that segment, and then I calculate the difference. So I fix the OP by adding that delta. Okay? And you have to do that for every single OP you have in every segment. But this can be done very easily with a very simple loop that creates no objects, no block closures, anything. It's just adding a delta. Okay? Takes time, but it's not that bad and doesn't generate new objects. So all of this can be done very easily in Smalltalk. So the problem becomes a problem of how fast we can do this, okay? And so for every segment you have to traverse all the objects you have there, all the slots, all the instance variables, and for each of them you have to find where the OP is pointing to. So you have to find the segment and to calculate the delta. So the first attempt was to just go to segment 1. It is here, no. Segment 2, it is here, no. In a linear search was too slow. Then we tried a different approach. The approach was, okay, put first the kernel, then the old space, then the VM space, because most of the pointers go, for instance, to the kernel, because you are saving behaviors and classes and meta classes, many things that belong to these spaces. This was quite good, very acceptable, okay? And it's still linear, but you have a very good chance to find the segment very soon. And much better is with, I don't have time to explain this algorithm now, but there is a way to find this in O of 1 time. I don't have time to explain this, but it's easy. It's easy. You have to pre-compute a table, and then you just enter the table. But so in few words, you divide all the segments into very small pieces and pre-compute where every piece belongs to the segment, and then divide the OP by the number of bytes of the segment, and you go to that place. It's very simple. And so with this was much better. Of course, for this much better algorithm to work, you have to sort the blocks according to the addresses where they start. So you have to sort without using blocks. Okay? Can be done. It's interesting. You only need an object that understands value. It's just that. And but you have to pay all the time attention to all these small details that you usually don't do when you are writing Smalltalk code for normal things. So that's it. I mean, in the last few days we discovered that in most cases you can ask the operating system to load a chunk of bytes into a predefined address in memory. So if all the segments can be reallocated in the same place where they were before, then most of these reallocations go away, and we have to use all of these only in case where the operating system is not giving you the same addresses as you had before. So, but with the third approach, the speed is very good. So this is it. Some more final things. The kind of of things we are trying to do is not just to replace C code or assembly code with Smalltalk code and make it run. We also want to make it easier for the reader to understand what is going on, what kind of things they should consider, etc., etc. And here we haven't yet been able to express all these tiny details that are so important that we would love to express in the code. So a programmer reading this will easily understand that they have to be very careful here and not just change the code in a refactoring without noticing that things will get broken. So this is like just the beginning of this sort of thing. It's not just replacing assembly with Smalltalk. It's also expressing more the constraints, the restrictions, the care you have to have, etc., etc. So this is where we are right now. So that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
So as you move things from the VM into the VI, do you see the VM going away altogether someday?
Well, Bee Smalltalk comes in two flavors. One is with no VM at all, so that is a reality. But this is the research Bee Smalltalk image or environment. For PetroVR, we are not using all of that. We still use some services from the VM. We are getting rid of them one by one. But yes, that is proven possible.
I have a question. This is more. I really wonder what is the status? Do you have the right to reverse engineer binary format? Because you know BSC. I don't know who owns BSC and what is the intellectual property there.
Okay.
But because and also imagine, do you have to write something that is an interpreter on a data structure that you don't own or is not open source? And can you open source something that is closed?
Okay. We haven't done reverse engineering ever. What we have done is to use a Smalltalk to build a new Smalltalk. So all the formats are different, the way our libraries are different, everything is different, the compiler is different, there is no reverse engineering. The only we have to do is to understand some parts of the VM that had to do with where some variables are and where some spaces start or end. We are not. We are rewriting everything. The GC. We have rewrote all the GC, the JIT compiler, the Smalltalk compiler. The libraries are totally new. There is no reverse engineering. Most people don't believe that, but that's the reality.
Wait. I can understand what you're saying, but if you want to execute something, you cannot tell it that blindly, suddenly you understand how it is executed. So this means that for example, if you want to be compatible with the existing system,
We are not compatible.
you are not compatible.
No, because we are not using BSC for many long. The only we are using is some services from the VM that are still running in the VM, only in the production, but in development or in the research, we are using no VM at all. Okay? Okay, guys, thank you.